Good evening. I'm just getting everybody over as a panelist, so bear with me just a minute. Hi there. You all able to hear me? Yeah, okay, great.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, Paula. We're still missing 2, 3, 4. Still missing 2. Missing Peter and Nikki, it looks like.
Peter should be coming in right now. That's all I see.
Okay. Let me text Nikki and see if she's going to join.
Congratulations on your first official meeting, I think, right?
Yeah. Thanks for helping us shift this to remote in a pinch today.
Sure, no problem.
Like a church service. It's so quiet.
Tell us a story, Peter.
Yes, I know.
Oh, there's Nikki. Okay, great. So I think we have everyone here. Very exciting to have you all here, and I'm so sorry that we're not meeting in person. It would have been wonderful to see all your faces across the table, but Mother Nature had other things in mind, apparently. So I want to welcome Paula, Peter, Catherine, Nikki, Shanna. Shanna, is that how we pronounce your name?
It is, yes.
Thank you. I'm Kim, and then Cynthia as well. So there's 7 of us here, which is wonderful. And Andy Port has kindly offered to put us remote tonight because obviously we didn't want to be out in the storm, and the city buildings are closed tonight anyway. So this is our first official meeting of the Public Art Committee. It's Thursday, April 4th. It is 7:04, and we can call the meeting to order. I am not going to be acting as your chair, so we will be hopefully electing a chair for this this body of people shortly. But I would like to sort of start out. I have about 20 minutes on the agenda right now to kind of have any open discussion about the public art policy itself and what we're charged with doing. I sent you all a link to the document. A couple of members here were also on the advisory committee that put the document together. So a couple members are quite, you know, have already been engaged in it. So if there's any, and actually, Andy, if you don't mind, I'll share
Sure.
my screen and pull up the document.
Yeah, by all means.
If I can find it. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, this was pulled together because it was primarily a request of the Parks Commission, and our liaison from the Parks Commission is actually Nikki Whalen. The Parks Commission often receives many requests for public art, and they were feeling sort of like, their charge is really policies and use and changes of our city parks, not necessarily to have any opinion about public art per se. So they were really hoping to have some sort of guidelines or policy, or ideally a separate group of people that could help determine whether or not a particular piece of art, whether it's a donation or a new construction or an RFQ or whatever, was the appropriate piece to go into a park. But beyond that, public art doesn't necessarily need to be in a city park. It could be in any public space. And so it just seemed right to create a policy that would encompass public art in all public places in the city that are, able to be experienced by residents and visitors alike. So that was the impetus for putting this together. There was a pretty broad group of people that were involved in writing this, including many artists in the community, members of the Parks Commission, members of the Cultural Council. And this was several months in process. We went through public art policies from other cities across the country that we pulled from what had been working for them and put this document together. So it really does span a broad number of topics. Primarily, it defines public art. It defines a curatorial vision for public art in Newburyport. And it also kind of gives this committee some guidelines and questions that we should be asking as we determine whether a piece of public art is appropriate. And that runs the gamut from not just, is it accessible? Is it, something that is sort of in keeping with our vision of Newburyport and our culture and our history and whatever, but also, is it long lasting? Is it sited appropriately? How is it fabricated? How is it installed? What kind of maintenance requirements will there be? And looking at it long term, how is it going to be viewed 50 years from now, as opposed to just today? There's also processes in here that relate to if the city is putting out an RFQ, which is obviously something we're going to be talking about tonight, versus if this is a donation, or if this is a group of people that come to our committee and ask, hey, I would really like to install a piece of public art. What do you think? So it gives guidelines on the process by which we can, ask questions, get basic information in the beginning, have them speak to what we're calling the department owning, the department that owns the land, whether it's the Parks Commission or the DPS, so that they would go there first and make sure that this would be, a feasible project for the artist to embark upon. And then it also gives guidelines for the process itself. So as the piece of art is being developed, what are sort of the metrics by which we can determine if it's, meeting the schedule, meeting the budget, what sort of things should we be looking at in terms of community engagement, public meetings, having people from the public be able to give their thoughts and opinions on it, and so on and so on. So that's sort of the gist of the policy itself. And I'm hoping you all had a chance to, at least, I know it's pretty lengthy, but had a chance to kind of go through it. And I just want to sort of allow at this point anyone to ask any questions or, voice any concerns or just give, any thoughts about this.
I do have one initial question, which is, have all of the public art, has all of the public art to date been cataloged? And is that collection readily available to the public now?
Yes, so our finance director, Ethan Manning, has a list of art that is covered by the city's insurance policy. And that is probably the most comprehensive listing that we have to date. There might be public art that is not insured that will not be on that list, but that would probably be a good place to start. And I can get that information from Ethan and circulate that with this group.
Kim, I might have been an error in that what you sent, the only document that I think I received was the call for artists document. So the one that you have on the screen or whatever.
Sorry, that was a link, Peter. It's a link on the city's website. I thought I had sent that in an email earlier. Sorry if you didn't get it. I can. So if you go, this committee has its own web page that's still in process because I haven't been able to list everyone's name on it yet, but we're working on that right now. If you go to City of Newburyport boards and commissions, there's a link for Public Art Committee. And on the left-hand side, there's a quick link to this document.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And I don't think it's necessary for you all to have, reviewed this or memorized this for tonight, because the one sort of action item after selecting a chair is to review an RFQ that has already been written, because that project is sort of already in process. So I don't think necessarily, you have to know this by heart tonight, this public art policy.
There is one other item that actually relates to the reviewing the RFQ that we have in front of us, which is that ultimately we'll want that advertised and soon on says city website, mayor, etc. Also the cultural council social media accounts, and to my knowledge those don't exist yet, so I'm wondering if we can address that.
We can advertise them on the city. We have a number of social media accounts through the city, so we could advertise it there.
Okay.
Though this might be in the document, I'll ask it anyway, so pardon me if it is outlined, but is the committee seen by the town and the mayor's office, I guess, that initiated this? Are we to consider ourselves mainly a reactionary board, and that is that we are there to interpret and execute or recommend things that are brought to us, or are we proactive in defining areas or commissioning a work ourselves or going in that direction? So I'm just wondering how does the city see the committee?
Sure. So
activity.
Yeah, so section D, I think here I have on the screen, is probably the quickest place to go for some of that. I think, I see this as being a bit of a fluid policy. I think this entity is going to be charged with how, to sort of taking a leadership role in public art in the community. So I think for sure, this will be the place where artists in the community will come when they have ideas and thoughts about public art. But I also think that this committee can take charge in, creating a comprehensive list and almost map of where all of the public art is in the city, promote it, identify areas where public art might make sense. you know, the city council, when they were approving this, saw this committee kind of mirrored a bit the Community Preservation Committee, which meets twice a year. So they were sort of seeing that there'd be two sort of open call or open application periods where the Public Art Committee could say, you know, we're now hearing applications for public art, and have people come with their ideas. And then I think it's going to be important for this group to be able to sift through those and say, yes, this aligns with our greater vision of where we think public art is needed, missing, or maybe not needed. Maybe there's too many pieces of public art in some particular spot. We want to encourage other areas of the city. So I think it's fluid in that regard. But I do think that this committee will be the ones that will be sort of identifying and defining where we want public art to move forward. Does that answer your question, Peter?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kim, it sounds like the Public Art Committee is part juror of, for example, if there were 2 calls to artists during the year, we would sift through those and I'm hearing that maybe incorrectly, but as a way of jurying those particular pieces of art and whether we think they're appropriate for the city and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the second part of that for me is do we have a vision?
So we have a curatorial vision defined here.
There it is, yeah.
Yep. To foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Newburyport. We seek public art that is driven by an artistically strong vision, enhances the diversity and equity of the existing collection, and possesses durability appropriate to the lifespan of the work.
I remember that paragraph.
You helped write that, Paula.
All right, that answers my questions. Thanks.
Okay, so if it's all right, does anyone else have any other questions or concerns, comments? Okay, so I would like to have us discuss, so chair, every board and commission and committee has a chair that runs the meeting. And so there's a little bit of a learning curve there, I will say, having been the chair of the Parks Commission for 7 years. It's not a very steep learning curve, but there are certain processes that need to happen. The chair would need to approve any agendas, would need to call a meeting to order, make sure there's a quorum for the meeting, and then hear motions and seconds, and then allow for both deliberation on motions that are on the floor, and then take public comment and sort of, you know, move public comment along if you give everyone 2 minutes or so forth. So the chair is really sort of in charge of keeping the meeting on track and sort of defining the agenda of the meeting ahead at the beginning of the meeting. I am the staff member for this committee, so really my role, hoping to just provide sort of feedback from the city side of things. I'll be writing the meeting minutes, I'll be circulating the agendas and the packets to you all, so I'll be sort of serving kind of an administrative and advisory role here. Although the city council has given me the power of having a vote of 1 of 7 on this committee. Unlike you all who are appointed for 3 years, I am appointed for 1 year. So I might change and I might be somebody else a year from now. But really, while I'm happy to provide assistance to the chair and give, you know, nudges or wherever, you know, advice where needed to help, you know, until that person gets up to speed on how to run a meeting. It shouldn't be me. So
Kim, could I
yes.
ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you stop screen share so we could actually see each other bigger?
Sure. Absolutely. There we go.
That's good. Thank you so much.
I
We
would
see
look
you.
better, but my hair and makeup guy, he was not called in, so.
And if you all don't feel comfortable appointing a chair on this first meeting, I don't want to put anyone sort of in the hot seat, but it is something we should discuss as a body. I'm happy to sort of lead that role for the first meeting or two. But again, long term, it shouldn't be me. It should be one of you 6 lovely people.
It doesn't sound like there's a lot of necessarily pre-meeting prep, but it's leading the meeting itself, it sounds like.
It is, yeah. And typically you would have, at least some communication in the week leading up to the meeting to review the agenda with the staff. So that would be me. Just in case, you want to make sure you have all of the information so you're prepared for the meeting, or if there's been any communication, usually the communication would come to the city. So if a resident was expressing a concern or had a question, that would typically come to me because my email will be listed on the city website. Yours will not, just for, privacy. So I would be reviewing any communication that we might be getting from the residents or from artists. So I would want to be sure to have a little bit of prep in the week leading up to the meeting so that you were fully aware of what, conversations might be going on during the public meeting. So you're not, sort of blindsided by anything.
The one question I have is the frequency of meetings of this group in this form, as opposed to being in a public forum in which there is community access to participate or
There's
be.
community access every time. So this is an open meeting. This is
Oh, okay.
advertised. Yep. So anyone can join this meeting. Andy, it doesn't look like anybody else has joined from the public. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, this is functioning just like the other boards and commissions that the city has. You're a panelist, there's a general public. You'll see them on the attendees tab, but there's nobody there right now.
So the intent with the city council, again, was that there would be at least two meetings of this committee per year. I envision there'll probably be a few more than that, but I don't imagine that we'll be meeting necessarily every month. I think that, for example, for this meeting, this is timely because we have to review an RFQ that the planning department is hoping to get out the door and get advertised in a very short term because we have a grant that is going to be sunsetting. Yeah, but I think we can meet, I would say a minimum of twice a year, but more as needed, sort of, but again, probably not every month.
Wish I could stick my hand up. Not this time.
Okay, and it's fine if we don't want to tonight. We can wait until the next meeting too, if that makes you all feel more comfortable.
I think it's going to be a great opportunity tonight to actually go through, a proposal. It'll, and it's had so much work done on it already, which is good for us, but we'll be able to go through this process, which I think is going to be really valuable for us. And maybe we'll gain some confidence too from that.
Sure.
And then.
Sure. So I then would suggest that someone make a motion to table the item of appointing a chair this meeting.
I make a motion to table the decision of making a chair for this evening.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second it.
Paula. Okay. And all those in favor, because we are a remote meeting, I need to make a roll call vote. So I'll call on each one of you individually and you'll say yay or nay. So Shanna.
Yay.
Cindy.
Yay.
Paula.
Yay.
Catherine.
Yay.
Peter.
Yay.
And Nikki.
Yay.
All right, thank you. So we'll table that until our next meeting unanimously. So, okay, so we are running right on schedule, which is lovely. So our next and final item of business is to review the call for artists, which was in your packet, and I hope you all had a chance to take a look at it. Andy, I'm going to let you actually, I think, take this one. Actually, I'll just say one bit of background. So this is a project that is a little bit of an anomaly based on what we're going to potentially be reviewing in the future, in that because this piece of art at this location has already been approved by the city council prior to the formulation of this public art committee, we don't have to review this in terms of its subject matter or its location. We do, however, want to be sort of involved in jurying the artists that we get for this. This is being paid for partially by a cultural grant that the city has received, which is a bit of a time constraint. We have to have the dollars tied up by the end of June. So ideally, we would get this out on the street as quickly as possible if we can, make any changes or adjustments or vote on it tonight, with the deadline for submissions for May 9th. So it would then come back to us to review the artist qualifications. And with that, I'm going to let Andy take it over and describe what the project is.
Thanks, Kim. That was a perfect introduction. Especially, I appreciate you pointing out just the unique nature of this one. I'm sure everybody here knows a little bit about the Central Waterfront, so there's been no shortage of discussion. But as Kim mentioned, and you've seen in some of the exhibits, there is a sculpture that's been called out for this particular project. The only thing that hasn't happened is the selection of the individual sculpture to meet that shipbuilding sort of theme. So unless you all have any questions, basically this is in essence put together as a solicitation. I did run it by the Newburyport Art Association as well, just to get some input. They thought it was in good condition. They apparently ran it by at least one particular person who was a sculptor, just to get their sense. So they thought that this was pretty good format. I've set it up so it's kind of a convenient PDF from it open, and tried to make the artist application pretty straightforward. Kim helped me to flesh out the questions here. And this could be, as was mentioned earlier, kind of a template for you going forward if you're having something like this. But in this instance, given the time frame, we want to encumber the funds, as Kim said, which is to enter into a contract with the artist by the end of the fiscal year, so that we can reserve those funds under the grant program. It's one of those typical parameters with state grants. So that being the case, the tabs kind of give basic information about it, including the estimated budget, which includes two sources, including the cultural funds, and any questions they have. It points to reviewing by the Public Art Committee. So obviously that's we have here some of the criteria that you might be looking at. Obviously, some of them seem like common sense. Some of them are just based on, like Kim mentioned, years of experience with things on the park side, just understanding the kind of issues that we might run into or want to deal with ahead of time. So at any rate, this basically gives them all the information they need. And so if there's aren't any additions or modifications to it, I think our intent would be to get it out on the street as soon as possible, get it distributed as wide as possible, and get proposals back. The assumption is that they're going to give us some sort of a concept for it, and that would be part of the evaluation. So it's not an RFQ where you're doing it based on qualifications, although that is a factor you take into account from experience that they've done before, but also you're looking at the actual proposal for this location in context. So whoever is responding will give that, in some sort of illustration or of some type. Short of that, I'm just gonna work with you on that process and kind of steer this through. The park project is slated for completion at the end of May or thereabouts. We have to give or take a day or two based on weather and all those things, but we want to get the park finished and open up for the public. So we recognize that it may not be that the sculpture is there when we do a ribbon cutting, but we'll be able to note where the sculpture is going to go, and it will have its logical place out there, as you saw with some of the illustrations. So if you don't have any other questions, I would note there may be some flexibility to modify this day a little bit, but the reason reason for this time frame here is mainly to get it out in the street as long as we can, while still being able to, after picking an artist, proposal, to if there's any exchange back and forth with them, of course, any more further communication or questions or whatnot, but to be able to wrap that up and be under contract for the grant program by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So.
Well, 2 points. One, it's incredible, and I'm honored, as I think my fellow committee members would probably agree, is it's probably one of the most prominent sites in all of the city in terms of not only for the community, but for any tourism that comes in to this area. While there are public art pieces on the circular, I'm searching for the name of the.
Rail trail.
Thank you. Senior moment, I'm sorry. So it's an incredible honor, for one. Two, just to understand the process, when these submissions come in, is it our job then to boil it down to a series and then present that to the public, to the city council, whatever? Can you give us a little bit more of what our role is in terms of how much, for lack of a better term, authority we have in this process?
Sure, I can take that one.
Yeah,
So
okay, Kim, because this is also a little bit unique, this one. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Andy, chime in if
Yeah.
I'm saying anything out of
Sure.
turn here, but yes, I think this body, along with the planning department, because Andy Port is the project manager for this project, so I definitely want to keep him involved in this. I think the Public Art Committee would be reviewing and hopefully, narrowing down the artists to potentially 3, and then interviewing or maybe speaking with the artists in a public setting. That's how I sort of envision this happening. And yes, I do think that at the end of the day, Andy, along with the Public Art Committee, would be voting on which artists to select for this project. And then Andy, because this has already been approved by the city council, it's my understanding that this would not need to go back then before the council for approval of this and of the Public Art Committee, because it's already been approved in concept and we have the funding to pay for it. So there's no need to go back to council to ask for an appropriation or to ask for any
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So as you said, it's really we're on a fast track, good first trial, example here for the committee, getting started up to review a proposal for a specific installation. In this case, we happen to know a lot of factors and have things lined up, so it's great. And you have a little bit sort of limited area that you have to worry about, but you can see that entire process and run through it, work on any kinks going forward. But here we can actually focus on, as Peter mentioned, just a great prominent location for one of your first, sort of our collective selections. It's good that it's a sort of a working group of, collective opinions, to kind of reach that conclusion. But this is going to be a prominent location. It's going to be there very prominently, and, for people, all kinds of, times of the year. So thinking about what makes sense there and what conveys that message of shipbuilding and some of the maritime history and whatnot, but also, picks up Newburyport and add your own little flair into the selection process. So.
Andy, can I ask you, in your experience in the past, and Kim, also, will there be a lot of public comment, in your opinion?
Depends on who shows up to the public meetings. You never can tell. They'll just by way of the fact that these are public meetings, that means that counselors are invited, members of the public are invited, other artists are invited. So that's just part of the public process. And that's why we want this committee to be here, so that we can have that dialogue.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any thoughts or suggestions, anything you feel that we might have missed in the RFP, so to speak, or the artist solicitation that before we get this out and hopefully start seeing a bunch of proposals come in that you can review?
I have one question.
Yeah.
The 2 interpretive panels that the artist is supposed to in part respond to and we're supposed to in part consider in selection,
Yeah.
will we have more information about the content of those? And will the artist have more information about the content of those in determining their work?
That may be a little bit harder to do in this time frame. What we'll have is a little bit more information about what the content will be on that. I don't know how well we'll be able to get that information out to everybody because it will not be in the finalized format, to be sure. But we'll have a better idea of what the text will be saying, as well as some of the the photographs, historical images, for instance, will be used. But I don't know how much we'll be able to communicate out to folks, and that was why I guess I felt that it was important here to note the theme that was intended here with this park project, right? Throughout the entire design process, the city council went through, with me and others for a while, but also leave it as free as possible for an artist, of course, to be creative about that. So, I didn't want, I didn't think it was beneficial necessarily to the selection you get at the end of the day to limit that. But at the end of the day, so I tried to hint at essentially what these panels are going to be talking about, which is the maritime history, shipbuilding and life on a ship, and that would give at least an indication of something that if they wanted to pick up on a theme, in some way for the sculpture, that they could do so. But we can try to distribute out, I just don't know if it'll get out to all the same people, because once these things start spreading by, word of mouth or an email or something, not everybody's going back to the same place to get information, like on a city website, even if you try. So we could try to do that, but that's one reason why I tried to indicate the theme of these panels. Had we had enough more information, these have taken a little bit longer to pull forward. So the actual panel elements or content. So that being the case, I would have attached that as an exhibit here if we had information on that, but we weren't quite there yet. So
Thank you.
Nikki,
So-
did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I guess so, since this is a new committee. And I was just thinking that since we're on this committee, and I know all of us have some art background, but we would not be potential candidates for artists for a project that we're voting on.
Correct. You'd have to recuse yourself. Yep.
Yes, that's what I figured. I just thought I'd make it clear.
So
I guess I'll put my shipbuilding materials away.
So are we basically then making a decision based on a finished presentation of a work by an artist, or a conceptual or thematic presentation?
Could be
Yeah.
either.
That's a
what
great
point-
question.
Yeah.
It's actually, you are actually looking at the concept, right? So however they choose to illustrate that for you, hand drawings or a 3D model or whatever they want to do, you are actually evaluating it before it's been finished, of course. But so that's part of the reason why the questions for them are things like, what are the materials? How does it attach? Give us a little more explanation if there's interaction of some type. So you will be evaluating it based on their proposal to create that art form, unless for some reason someone's got a shipbuilding, or a ship type sculpture already and ready for us for this.
Well, right, that's possible. That is definitely
It's
possible.
possible.
Yeah.
But
So basically we decide on concept. Do we at some point then require from that artist an actual rendered representation of the work to ensure that what the concept was is
Mhm.
actually what we're buying?
yeah, that's a great
Uh,
question. Yeah, this is going to basically function, it's a streamlined version of some of our other bigger projects, like the construction of the actual park. But this will be followed through with a contract with them. It will have further detail if necessary to describe the artwork. But it'll have attached to it the illustrations, the description that they've given us, and any other details we feel a need to cover. The other piece that we'll cover there is if there's any sort of payment schedule broken out versus everything lump sum at the end.
Okay.
So, but at any rate, you will be able to evaluate both their qualifications with this, and we will be able to make sure that there's enough specificity. Obviously, to some extent, those who've already got experience are going to have a leg up because they'll be able to point to specific examples of their work and whatnot. But you'll be able to look at their qualifications and prior experience or examples of their work, and the information that they're giving back to us and how they respond, especially if they're meeting with us when we're in our meetings and talking through, will probably give us a pretty good indication as to whether or not we're going to get something quality at the end of the day, even aside from the written contract. So
And again, I think we narrow this down to a handful of artists, and then we invite those artists in, and we're able to ask questions and potentially
Yeah.
seek additional information. So I do think there'll be some opportunities to get some additional information if we don't have it necessarily for this response.
Yeah, we'll want to, as we get closer to that time frame, if it isn't tonight, we'll definitely want to touch base to make sure that we have scheduled a meeting to do this process because of the time frame. It'll be very important
Yep.
for us to do turnaround. That's one thing Kim and I always have to coordinate with boards and committees and time frames. So we'll want to make sure that we line that up right as we get closer.
Yeah, so I think we should expect that our next meeting will be, pretty quickly after this request is due.
And one thing, just to think about in advance, and we can, touch base as you're thinking about sort of ranking or, what your thoughts are on anything we get is, sometimes it's a little like Kim mentioned, it's a little bit like the Community Preservation Committee. But if you're reviewing, a ton of these things, depending on, you never know how many you're going to get in something like this. But if you're reviewing a ton of them, sometimes it's easier to sort of start with, all right, is there a bottom where, no one's interested in all these? All right, we're going to put those aside for a minute and focus on others. Think in advance about that. We don't know how many we'll get, but it'll be easier if everybody's prepared to, say how they feel about each selection. And then it'll be easier to have that collective discussion and maybe hone in on the few that make sense, and then get further information. Obviously, we'll be asking them if there's something we feel is deficient for the explanation of the artwork. We'll circle back with them beforehand, but then we can follow through with them and interview them or ask them further questions.
The one question I have is, what is the distribution or communications vehicle in order to put this out to the public? And how far reaching is that in order to get in, hopefully, enough submissions that we do have a pool to actually be very conscious about our selection?
So that's actually called out in our public art policy as well. So I think it is our standard. We've got, there's some standard, what am I trying to say, Andy? We put it out on like our bid document, sorry, central register and those types of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, there's a couple of bureaucratic places that we place them, but we're
Yeah.
also going to be doing it. We know that something like this works well with the word of mouth, so we're sending it out to the Newburyport Art Association and
Yeah.
others that will, working with established networks essentially as best we can, and that tends to balloon from there. So we'll be advertising it in the formal sense, but we will also be distributing it through artists to artists, and on from there. So any suggestions along those lines you want to forward along to others, the bigger and wider it goes, the better. So
Yeah, I think
So
their
that's
public
a-
art
that's a
policy
good
calls
point.
out that.
The reason why I ask is that I know that the city of Boston has received a major grant from the Barr Foundation, actually from Mellon out of New York, regarding a public art sort of platform that they're developing. And, it might behoove us to ask Cara, who's the director of cultural affairs for the city of Boston, is what vehicles have you used in order to get the word out for submissions for anything? So that could be something.
We've got a month. The deadline's in a month, so we have to get really on this, Andrew, would you like us to put this out on our various networks?
yeah, by all means. I mean, in my sense,
And in what
the more of us,
form?
it doesn't matter if end up copying by accident the same people. I think the wider we spread it through any different channels, the more artists it's going to get to. So it can't hurt, in my view, to get more proposals back for you to work with. So
And should we do a link to the city website?
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, we can definitely post this on the website. I tried to remain, these things depend on the type of project you're doing, but I tried to remain cognizant that I wanted the call to artists to be self-contained to a degree so that they didn't need to go to the website to find it. Or they had all the information in there as a PDF. But at the same time, we can post this to the website and folks can go there. But what I tried to do is package this so that it could be easily emailed from person to person, and they'd all have everything they needed to respond back efficiently, know everything they needed to know, recognize the time frame to respond back, and everything they need to do that. So well, we can post on the website, and we'll do that. Assuming we're all good here now, we'll get that out there, get it posted. But but I definitely, you know, the idea I think in general is that more people are going to probably reach it by it being forwarded via email, you know, through listservs, you know, like the Art Association and others. So
Creative County, or I don't know, Kim, NECCF, I forget the,
Yep. We
Yep.
can email it to them as well.
Yeah, ECCF and
ECCF, right.
yeah, and yeah, Karen Ristabin.
Mass Cultural Council. Creative County one that's out of Lynn is a really good one. I'll find out who. John Anderson and Karen Ristabin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you want to, I'll defer to Kim if you have any thoughts on this, but if you want to either send those contacts to us or email addresses, and we'll make note and reach out to anyone we can, but
Okay.
feel free as well, of course, because we have this sort of prepared as a PDF. It can be essentially forwarded to anybody you're finding who might be of any way interested in this or know of someone else who might be. So don't be hesitant, I would say, to distribute it to them and say, hey, you may not have seen this, are you interested? Do you want to forward it to anyone else who might be?
We should probably keep a list of all of the outreach points that we make so that we have that ready to go for the next one.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kim-
I almost would want Andy to take charge. So if you all have ideas and email addresses of these, ECCF or Mass Cultural Council or Creative County, maybe get those email addresses to Andy, and so he can kind of control, and keep a list of who this is being sent out to.
It
We'll
does
also
help to have
yeah.
consistency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
We'll
yeah, if you
also
want to
post
just,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
we'll
can
also
just
post
bullet
it to
list
the
all those emails and send them
right.
over to me. So yeah.
We'll post it to our, Public Art Committee webpage so that it'll be easy at your fingertips if you have others that you want to, send this to or somebody asks you about it. I'm sure the city's social media pages will be promoting this pretty widely as well. And then your social media pages, I think, are fine as well if you want to promote it that way. So does anybody have any sort of edits or questions or concerns about the actual document itself? Because we want to make sure that we get this out as quickly as possible. So now would be the time to make any edits.
I'm good with it. I read it the other day and I thought it was excellent.
Okay.
I agree.
So do I hear a motion then to approve the call for artists as it's written to circulate to the public and to the artist community?
I make a motion to accept the
Thanks, Peter.
document as is and start shoving it out the door.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, Paula, and is there any deliberation on that motion? Anything else? Any further deliberation? All right, hearing none, I'm going to do a roll call vote. And Andy, can you stop share so I can see everybody's faces?
Oh yeah, my apologies. Yeah.
No problem. Shanna,
Yay.
Cindy,
Yay.
Paula,
Yay.
Catherine,
Yay.
Peter,
Yay.
and Nikki.
Yay.
All right, we have our first action completed.
All right.
Go us. So
Andrew, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with us moving forward? Is this a one-time shot with you?
I will be peripherally involved occasionally when there's a project. Unfortunately, my time is spent a lot of the things that I do are related to land use and development, so and zoning and whatnot. So this happens to be one of the projects that I'm worked on over the years. I happen to have been involved with like the last decade or so of the central waterfront resolution of issues there with the garage and everything. So the long and short is this is a rarity, I would say, relatively speaking, that I'll be frequent. I won't be as involved as someone like Kim or Jordy Vining, you might know. They'd be more frequently involved with these things than I would. Unfortunately, I would love to actually spend more time on some of this stuff, but it's just more of a rarity for me.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So I do need to take a formal motion to adjourn the meeting unless anyone has anything else they'd like to discuss.
Kim, just if I could, just whoever
Sure.
ends up being the chair or you for now, if someone could just circle back, we can touch base about whatever timing for a meeting very shortly, I assume.
Yeah.
few days after we get the proposals, we'll post
Yep.
them, make them available. You can take a look, but probably the week after, or week and a half after, so we can do a turnaround. So I'll leave that to you.
Yeah. I'll circulate an email to this group and try to schedule our next meeting early in the week. So,
Thanks.
okay, motion
Well,
to
it's,
anyone?
it's an incredibly auspicious and interesting first go around for the committee. I'm excited
It
because
is.
this, as I said, is probably one of the most prominent positions in the community for a new piece of public art. So it's going to be looked at, scrutinized, celebrated, ridiculed. We got a lot on our hands, and I love it. You know.
I love that.
No
That's just
pressure on
up
the
my
selection.
alley.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Peter, you're the motion maker. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm the motion maker. I make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Is there
I
a
second
second?
that.
Paula, okay. Okay, Shanna,
Yay.
Cindy,
Yay.
Paula,
Yay.
Catherine,
Yay.
Peter,
Yay.
and Nikki.
Yay.
All right, I'll be in touch with you all via email, if not tomorrow, then Monday, to set up our next meeting. And thank you all for a very, we were under an hour, look at that, so wonderful. I'll see you all
Kim,
soon.
thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank
Kim,
you.
for everything.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you,
Thank
Andy,
you,
too.
Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.